Welcome to Wine School. I'm Mike. With me as always, Eric. Special guest today, we got Ryan and Patty from Hopkins Vineyards. What's up, guys?
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Welcome. Thank you for coming.
So today, you want to talk about our sponsor?
For sure. So today's episode is brought to you by Cannella Liqueurs, the latest and greatest in cinnamon spirits.
So check them out. All right. So today we're in the Western Connecticut Highlands. That's the name of the AVA that we're in, Patty. We're at Hopkins Vineyard in Connecticut, and they are an older winery. They've been in business with growing grapes many years. We're in a magnificent 200-year-old barn right now, and we're about to drink some really interesting stuff. Patty, you want to tell us a little bit about what you guys do here and what kind of grapes you grow?
Hopkins Vineyard has been here as a vineyard 25 years, with Hopkins Family owning the business and growing the grapes. We grow 11 varieties of grapes here in the vineyard on 25 to 30 acres. And with the grapes that we grow, the Cabernet Franc grape, the also Vidal Blanc grape and the ice wine, and also Saval Blanc and Terminac grape. We do also do a Chardonnay. We also grow a and now you're going to brain me. Usually can do it in water. A Lemberger, a Dorfelder, and a Pinot Noir. We also do.
And the Lemberger and the Dorfelder, those are German grapes.
German hybrid grapes.
I've never heard of either one of those.
Well, most of our grapes that are hybrid from Cornell University. Because what they do, and when Mr. Hopkins started growing grapes, they take a lot of the guessing game work out. So by sending the soil samples, the temperature histories to Cornell University and also to UConn.
So then they tell you based on this will grow here the best.
Yeah, for climates.
So that's how you got the Lemberger and what was the other one, Dorfelder?
Dorfelder.
Are those both reds?
Both are reds, and also Pinot Noir, which is a tiny pink. It's a light pink, light red grape.
Pinot's pretty temperamental. I think a lot of people don't try to grow it because it's hard to grow.
We grow it. We're very lucky. We're very fortunate, and we're very fortunate to grow and keep the grape longer on the vine for our ice wine. So freezing temperatures.
Now I think a lot of people don't know about ice wine, but that's when the grapes freeze and then you squeeze them and you end up with a sweet wine.
Very sweet wine, because what happens is in this ice wine, 14 degrees or colder for 4 days, the grape must be at that temperature. If the temperature fluctuates and it drops to 27 or 32, the winemaker will stop. He won't count that. We'll wait till the temperatures are 14 degrees or colder. And when he has that consistent temperature, when he's looking at the Weather Channel, and hopefully they're correct, that's when we plan on picking the grape. And it's very
So you
cold.
wait for it to freeze and then you run out and you start grabbing it while it's frozen?
It's frozen, no water content at all, and the grape crystal contexts are very textured and frozen. So when it goes into the pressing, bladder press, and pressed, takes a very long time. It's almost the heat from the press that allows the juice to come through. The very first hour that the grapes are in the press, its honey-like texture is dripping, and very slowly, incredibly sweet. So what happens is, 2013, when we pressed this particular grape, at harvest, this is 39.6 bricks of sugar, and residual sugar in this bottle, 20.7 bricks of sugar. So much different than
And it gets cold enough to make this every year?
It does, yeah. We're very lucky.
Wow.
And what a lot of people
About
can't see
10
is...
years we tried this, because what happened was Germany and Canada are the ice kings and queens of ice wines, and they in turn had a very cold season one year, and that's when all their product was frozen on the vine. And luckily the vineyard winemaker decided, wherever that was, that he wasn't going to throw all that out. He decided he was going to try to press it and see what he could make, and they made this. They found out ice wine was just a freak of nature, and that's how they discovered it. So it wasn't anything that someone just said, oh, ice wine is going to be wonderful. It was a very unhappy vineyard.
And it all worked out.
It all worked out. And then when we realized our climates were that cold and temperatures get very cold, this year, January 8th, we picked our 2014 grape because that's the year it was grown.
When do you guys normally pick the grapes, like October-ish?
September, middle of
September.
September and into October. We try to have everything picked by the middle of October, depending on weather and,
Yeah.
and rain and whatnot. But then we leave 5 rows aside for that October, November, which is the night owl dessert wine, and then 5 rows aside for when it's very cold.
And that's usually January for.
January. Yeah, it can be December, but January, February, that's pretty
Well,
cool.
and I mean, it's the first day of spring, and we still have a ton of snow on the ground out here, right? So you got.
So we do net the grapes at that point after our harvest because we don't want the deer and the birds and hopefully the bear not to eat them. And
The
get
bear?
them. Yeah. So
You guys have a bear?
well, we don't see them, but there are bears. we don't feed the bears, but there can be. Yeah. So that.
This is the first winery we visited where there's been the added threat of a bear attack. Underneath the vines.
Thank God they don't come that close,
All
but
right.
they would come and eat the berries.
So
We will start with the Vineyard Reserve. The Vineyard
Okay.
Reserve is the third dry of our wines. So, meaning it's the least dry, made with 2 grapes, our Terminac grape and our Syrah Blanc grape. And here you have a nice crisp dry.
Traminette and Syrah Blanc. What's the percentage? Is it like 50-50?
50-50.
50-50?
Both are grown here and also steel fermented, so there's no oak in this. So it's a very clean on your palate finish, nice crisp, dry blossom or stone fruit aromas, and definitely nice with your sushi and spicy foods.
This has got a great nose. What do you
It
think
does,
of
yeah.
this? Right.
Pears and flowers.
Pears,
lots of
black-
flowers, yeah.
Yeah. I get some apricot on it too, like some ripe apricot.
So
That's fantastic.
our labels are done through Dakota Group and Wilton, Connecticut, and they're very, very
The label's beautiful.
very, very important in wine when people, in this day and age, you have phones to take pictures, but in our day and age, you have to write them down. So this way, the labels become very important.
It's like a nice grapefruity kind of apricot on the tongue.
So with some
It's
sweet
like-
to it.
yeah,
A
Some
little bit of like
sweetness to it.
stone and minerals too.
Yeah.
What would you call this in a blind tasting if somebody handed this? to
I
you?
don't
I'm
know.
not sure I would know what to call it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think I might end
I
up.
would-
I like it though.
Yeah.
We have a lot of customers.
I would like lean towards like Sauvignon Blanc, but there's a couple of elements that are.
It's
You
close
should get a little bit of
Yeah.
that caffeine in there.
If
Yeah.
a customer comes
There's a
in
hint.
and is looking for a Pinot Gris, we'll
A Pinot Gris, that's-
I could see Pinot Gris too.
Yeah.
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 There's like I guess like a little bit of a pepperiness that kind of has it's in that direction. I suppose.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what I'd call it. So
Yeah.
maybe a Pinot Gris, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, we're very happy with the
I'm-
combination of those 2 grapes
Mm.
and our climate makes this nice blended by our winemaker
Very
who's
nice.
been with us 27 years.
what is the price point on this?
This is $14.99.
$15.
It's a good deal.
Wow. Decent wine for $15.
For
That's
sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome. On
What's
to the
next?
next one. What do we
Next
got?
is your Cabernet Franc.
Ah.
Our Cabernet Franc grape is grown here. It is oak fermented, normally oak fermented for 18 months. This was barreled and aged about 12 months, a little bit shorter time period, but with this being a very full body dry red, grown not to be confused with your Cabernet, your Syrah, is it? No.
Sauvignon.
Sauvignon.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this Cabernet Franc is conducive to this climate in Connecticut and this region of the United States. So with this, you get a concentrated blackcurrant, dried fig, a little bit of spice and earthiness after being barreled in those American oak barrels. So this, you'll find is great with your filet mignons, your hearty beefs. Nice.
And what a lot of people can't see is that we're on the edge of this big lake, and you were
Yes.
talking earlier about how the lake it helps kind of conserve heat, and that's how you're able to grow the Cabernet Franc grape here?
Well, the seasons being that with the sloping hills and the warming of the lake, the temperatures are definitely varied by that. But also, even though you look outside now and you see the snow acts as an insulator. So the men don't prune right after harvest in September. They start pruning in February. And with that, they prune and they start tying the vines on the lowest 2 vines wires. And that way it supports them when the grapes start to get heavier. But the pruning allows us to have less grapes grown in the fall, because if we did not prune, we'd have 24, 25, 30 bunches of grapes. They'd much be smaller. So by pruning, they allow the buds to grow smaller. But budding was right now, what it should be, but it's going to be a little bit later. But so he's been taking cross sections. He cross-sectioned the I have a line in the box over there, but maybe they used them already. But they cross-hatch open them up with a knife, and they check to see if the vine and the berries are sleeping in the bud or they've been damaged. So right now, we have about 20% damage of our Chardonnay because the temperatures dropped lower than 12%. But that's not to say that we don't compensate for that in growing. It's just that 20% of the earlier buds that bud have been damaged. So we'll have the vines bud at different rates because of the way they planted them. So when they flower, the rains in June would damage all our plants. Okay, so the same thing. The flowering is timed so that each vine will flower at different levels so that we don't lose all of our Vidal Blanc or all of our Saval.
All right.
So it's the temperature, the climate, Connecticut, the soil, the rich soil from being a dairy farm. We have nice rich soil from the cow manure that was here, and Mr. Hopkins dairy cows were here. So all those elements make a good vineyard. It's not that you can just go out into Connecticut and start planting a vineyard with 90 acres. It doesn't work that way. It would be nice. But the snow insulating does help, except for the fact that we had really, really bad low temperatures, below 12 this. So they know that. They know they're going to lose some of the product.
But it sounded like this vineyard there was started a little bit out of necessity. It used to be a dairy farm.
Yes. Mr. Hopkins, and this farm built 1787. So in that 278 years that we've been here, it's been Morgan horses, sheep, tobacco, and dairy farm last. I don't know the other three in what order, but I do know those three products were grown here before. Last was dairy farm, milking Holstein cows. So when in the 70s, when milking was becoming a little more difficult for a farmer in this part of the country, and milking parlors were becoming popular, Mr. Hopkins had 90 head of herd, and he knew he couldn't support his family on that anymore. So that's when he traveled around the world, learning about grape growing, learning about vineyards, and almost moving to Australia. He loved it there. He lived there for 3 months, left his family behind with his mom, but he and his wife went for 3 months. And then he came back and he realized he couldn't sell this farm. It's been in the family too long.
It's beautiful.
The family did come from the Mayflower, but not directly and right here at that time. So that's why it was 1787. They actually established their family here. So with that establishment and knowing that he had to do something he was still a young man in his late 40s, he wanted to keep this farm growing. So that's when he decided to turn the area into vineyards, planting grapes. And that took 4 to 5 years before he could actually bottle and sell the grape into the wine, because you can't grow a grape the first year. Many vineyards in Connecticut are new, and sometimes they try in 2 to 3 years to sell. They're waiting. They're excited. They want to get that wine in a bottle, and you'll notice the big changes. And I'm sure people have come here 25 years ago and had this wine. It's much different than it is now. We're very good, very nice that we have a winemaker that's been here 27 years, and the family been here this long.
Well, I quite like the Cab Franc. Yeah.
The nose is like
Interesting
it's
flavors.
like a caramel fig on the nose. It's pretty interesting.
I get
leather and even blueberry in there.
I was getting raspberry, but the leathery fig and tobacco. It's funny. I was picking up tobacco on it. And then you said this place used to be a tobacco farm, which is
Maybe it's in the soil.
maybe it's in the who knows.
Yeah.
But I was definitely getting a little bit of tobacco. It's solid as well. Now the price. What's the price point on
Price
this
is
one?
$24.99.
$25 for a great Cabernet Franc. That's a good deal too.
Let's move on to the
I like
next
the
one.
I like the label too. It's very
Yeah, the label's
well thought out.
label's really neat. Right? We
I
should
didn't realize that. Poured those.
little rower guys.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to clean your glasses because we don't want that cabin with your
Yeah.
delicious dessert wine. Now the ice wine is definitely going to be something different. Ice wines, when we had a Canadian vineyard come and visit about 7 years ago here, and they came just because they were passing through, not because they were trying to compare our ice wine to theirs. They were very, very excited, and they were very happy that we were growing the ice wine. And they were definitely surprised, because ice wines can go from $40 all the way up to $1,500 a bottle.
Whoa.
So ours is priced at about $43 a bottle. So this is actually smaller, 355 millimeters in the bottle. And the slenderness of the bottle, the uniqueness of the bottle also will show the customer that it's very special. So this, because of the price and because of the growing, more labor intense, the price goes up. So this Vidal Blanc grape is on the vine at 14 degrees or colder for 4 days before pressing, and then steel fermented in our steel barrels. When we actually produce this, the winemaker needs to get the sweetness of that bricks of sugar down to at least 20 bricks. So 20.7. I tasted this before bottling at 21.5, and it was way too sweet for me. And I like 3 sugars in my coffee. So this ice wine is a celebration wine. This Vidal Blanc grape, we put in 3 of our wines. We put it in the Duet, which is a dry wine, and it's steel fermented, but September harvest. We put it in the Night Owl, which is an October, November, later harvest, sweeter grape, sweeter temperature, and the ice wine. So you've had
almost
a special.
like a Riesling, where you're making
Yeah.
it, you get dry, a sweet.
And they're all
ice
labeled
wine.
in the tank, whichever one he's going to use it for, because he wouldn't want to put an ice wine into a Duet dry.
Yeah.
So this
Awesome.
is something you would put on your table for a celebration. This
Like
would be a
Thanksgiving
milestone.
or-
Yeah, Thanksgiving.
Spring.
First day of spring.
And this has this apple pear aroma, and it's going to have a wow on your palate. So
Cool.
I call this the Mercedes of wine.
Huh?
This is after a very celebration in your life milestone with a very, very hearty meal. You're a little bit too full for that.
Like getting
Dessert.
engaged.
Yeah.
Ryan, is there anything you want to say? And now's your chance on camera
This is your.
to be YouTube gold. Abby, can you come over here for a second?
So this, you'll see the golden nectar and the legs in the glass, and it's very, very syrup, but not honey as in thick, just in syrup
Color.
color.
Yeah.
So when you sip this, you're sipping this out of a cordial glass, smaller increments, because you wouldn't guzzle this like a wine, because it gets too sweet. So after dinner, instead of that cake that was delivered for that celebration, you're way too full. It goes out on your cordial table of your
I might have this with a little bit of
Liquors?
cheesecake, though.
exactly. So with a homemade cheesecake and drizzle this on,
Oh.
makes a nice dessert. But by sipping and toasting for that special occasion, you get that wow, that Godiva chocolate,
There
liquid
you go.
chocolate in a glass. Or
Salud.
Salud, yes. And this is extra special.
This is great.
Yeah.
So you see that wow?
Yeah.
Well,
And you have to sip it.
Huh.
You can't guzzle.
that was unexpected.
Right.
So-
Yeah,
Right.
it's a
You can't take a large mouthful because you're going to spit it right out at me. So you want to sip
Great
Yeah,
There's
flavors.
actually like a lingering. There's something behind it.
like a pear.
Yes.
It's like
yes.
pear and banana.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So
Huh.
it's very, very good. Yeah. So you drink a little bit of this.
So
Before
no,
you
I thought
pass.
it was like sauternes or something, but then it's totally different
No,
once
it's
you taste
it's,
it, right?
Yeah,
It's
it's
like
very
that.
different from a sauterne.
So this I call the celebration one.
I almost get like a candied tangerine or
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very
kind of.
much so.
Like really, really interesting. Well, so that's Hopkins Vineyards here in Western Connecticut Highlands AVA. Amazing. They're doing a bunch of really interesting things out here in a really interesting setting. So stop by and visit them if you get a chance, or look them up on the internet and try some of this great stuff. As always, we're going out with 30 seconds of craziness. This week's craziness is HoodwinkDover. So cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.